All right, so as I said, we're in this series where we're looking at the book of Proverbs, and we're just trying to see, what does God say about the best way for me to live my life? How can I actually grow my faith in practical ways? And the reality is we're not very good at making changes in our life. I mean, if you have a New Year's resolution, there's a good chance you've already abandoned it, 2 weeks in today. And even if you're not a New Year's resolution person, my guess is you probably have a similar track record to people that do make New Year's resolutions where we just struggle. We really struggle to make meaningful changes in our life and our faith. And so that's really what we're looking at in this series. And maybe you've had a moment like this. Maybe you've had a moment where you just, after you did something, after you made a decision, you just thought, what was I thinking? How did I think that was a good idea? I just had a moment like that outside. If you see my shoes all muddy, there's a really pretty sunset, and I was like, I'm gonna go get a better picture of this. So I stepped into mud, knowing it was mud, and I about slipped and fell and got all my clothes muddy. And immediately as I was slipping, I thought, what did I think was going to happen, stepping on mud on a slope? Right? You've had those moments where you just, after you made a decision, you thought, there's no way that was going to have a positive outcome in my life. What was I thinking? Maybe you haven't had those in a while, but I'm guessing at least as a teenager, you had your more fair share of those, right? Those what was I thinking moments. I remember when I was 16 or 17, my parents left me alone. It was summer day, and I was bored. And now, my friend and I, we loved fireworks and lighting things on fire. And so what we would do is we all worked a job, and I didn't really have any bills, so all my money was disposable income. So we like to drive up to Wyoming, where you can buy all the fireworks you want. And then we'd bring them back down, and we'd hide them from our parents in our sock drawer. And that worked most of the time, although we got caught a few times. But this one particular day, my parents were out, and I decided that the cure to my boredom would be to grab one of these fireworks called a bunker buster. Now, the fun thing about these, they're small, but they're loud and they're waterproof. And so you can drop them in a bottle, like a 2-liter or some plastic thing, or if it's glass, it'll explode, but if it's plastic, it'll just kind of shoot up in the air. And so in my mind, I thought I'll go grab one of these bunker busters and I'll grab one of these 2 liters, empty 2 liters. I filled it up with water and I put it in my sink, my parents' sink, inside. And I thought, drop this thing in there, and it's going to be fun. In my 16, 17-year-old mind, this is what I thought. And so I grabbed my lighter and I lit it, but as I went to drop it into the 2-liter, one of the sparks kind of touched my finger, and I just reacted by dropping it. And so the firework fell into the sink. But I'm calm under pressure. I knew exactly what to do. So I grabbed the hose, where it extends. I turned the water on because I just thought the wick is on fire and it's going to explode. So what do I need to do? I need to put water on the waterproof firework to make it go out. That didn't work. What that did do was it washed the firework into the garbage disposal, the little plastic or the rubber ring, and it shredded the garbage disposal in my face, sounding like a gunshot. Now it was summer. The windows were open. And all the neighbors, we lived in a normal neighborhood where there are houses all around. All the neighbors are coming out, looking, thinking, oh, there must have been a gunshot. Is everybody okay? Not wanting to get in trouble, I decided to step outside and pretend like I didn't know what was happening. And I was like, yeah, there was a loud noise. I don't know. But in hindsight, immediately after that happened, I had that moment. What was I thinking? I mean, best case scenario, what was going to happen? There was no possible good outcome from that, although my parents never caught on. They never caught on that the rubber was shredded. A couple years later, my stepdad replaced the garbage disposal and still didn't notice that I had shredded the rubber topping to it. So I got away with it, but still, what was I thinking? Maybe you've had a moment like that, where you make a decision, you do something dumb, and then you think, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? And maybe some of those moments you've had are funny. You look back at your pictures from 10, 15 years ago. You think, why did I think that shirt was a good idea to wear? What made me want to wear those pants? And it's kind of funny in some instances, right? But then there are other things in your life that are a little more painful. Those what was I thinking moments actually caused hurt in you or somebody that you care and loved. And those moments, those memories, those decisions carry a little bit more weight with it. And as a pastor, I've met with lots of people who are struggling with just about everything you can think of. And there's normally a moment where they say, like, what was I thinking? How did I get here? How did I get to this place where all these problems came crashing down, where my marriage fell apart, where I got addicted to this, where this thing happened? How did I get here? What was I thinking? You see, we all have this in common. We've all had these moments. We've all made these decisions where right after, thought, what was I thinking? Whether you're following Jesus or not, we've all been there. We've all been there. And the same thing is true in all of us. The thing that brought us to that moment, what comes out when I meet with people that have had this thing blow up in their face, is they made a decision. Sometimes weeks ago, sometimes months ago, sometimes years ago, that put them on a path that led to where they are now. And that's how all of us got to where we are. We've made a decision or a series of decisions that have led us to where we are now. It put us on a path. And sometimes the path that we are on is not a path that we want to go down. And so part of what we're looking at in the series is what am I doing in this part of my life? Is it helping me or is it hurting me? Is this decision in this part of my life, is it putting me down a path that I want to go in my relationships, with my words, with my finances, with how we interact with our spouse or our significant other? How we go about life, are my actions, are my directions, are my decisions, are they helping me or are they hurting me? And if you don't know the answer to that, just look at your results. Look at your life right now. Look at where you are at, because they'll tell you if the path you're on, the decisions you're making are helping you and or hurting you. And if you're sitting there thinking like, my dating life is a mess, my marriage is a mess, I'm always in debt, everything, all my words that I choose to say, the actions that I choose to take just hurt the people around me, look back at the decisions you're making because they've set you on the path that led to the destination you are at now. And what happens with most of us is we get stuck. We get stuck in the cycle of making bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And we keep suffering the consequences, and very few people can actually break that cycle. Like I said, most of us, if we made a New Year's resolution, we've probably already struggled or failed at it. In fact, 92% of people that start a New Year's resolution will fail. And here's the deal. We often have the right intentions, don't we? When it comes to making these changes in our life, we have the right intentions. But my guess is those intentions aren't quite enough. We want to lose that weight. We want to pay off that debt. We want to fix that relationship. We want our marriage to be better. We want our friendships to be better. We want these things to improve in our life. We have the right intentions, but so often we fail. We're great at acknowledging our problems. We can see them. But if you want this year to be different, if you want to make changes this year better, you have to do more than acknowledge your issues, acknowledge the problems, acknowledge the changes. Listen, there's a whole lot of people who are determined to spend more time with their family this year, to pay off that debt, to fix that relationship, to do all those things. But most of them will fail if all they have is intention. I've read a quote by Andy Stanley, who's a pastor in Georgia, and he says this. He says, direction, not intention, determines your destination. Direction, not intention, determines your destination. In a few weeks, my wife and I were going on vacation. We're going to go to Hawaii. My father-in-law has a condo over there, and I'm just looking forward to relaxing in Hawaii for a little bit. In a few weeks, we're going to go to DIA, right? And we're going to board a plane. And the pilot's going to say, here's our destination. We're going to Kona. And he's going to say aloha or whatever. And then his intention in that moment is to take the plane off and to fly us to Hawaii. But his intention doesn't matter. If he takes the plane off and never points the nose of the plane in the right direction, it doesn't matter how long he flies. We will never end up at our intended destination. intention doesn't matter as much as your direction, because direction, not intention, determines your destination. And if you're heading in the wrong direction, it doesn't matter what you intend to do, you will never get there. That's true in everything in your life. It's also true in your faith. If you intend to grow your faith, if you intend to get closer to God, that's a great intention. But if you never set the direction of your life towards things that will actually grow your faith, you'll never actually take a step closer to God. And if that's your intention this year to grow your faith, that's good. I don't want to downplay that. Intentions aren't bad, they're good. But intentions alone won't bring about change in your life. Good intentions won't get you where you want to go. And that's why Solomon in the book of Proverbs, he focuses so much, and what we're going to see today, he focuses so much on the direction that we point our life. He focuses so much on the direction, the decisions that we make, because he knows good intentions is a good place to start, but it won't get us where we want to go. We need a path that will lead to actual meaningful change. And that's what we're going to see today in Proverbs and over the next few weeks as we look at the different kind of topics in Proverbs. So today we're going to start in Proverbs chapter 2. And we're going to bounce around a lot through Proverbs, kind of looking at how we can actually make some of these changes in our life. We're going to start in Proverbs chapter 2, verse 12. Solomon writes this: wisdom, that's what the whole book is about. Wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked men, for men whose words are perverse, who have left the straight paths to walk in dark ways, who delight in doing wrong and rejoice in the perverseness of evil, whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. Here's what he's saying. He's saying we're all on paths. We're all on some path in this life. We're all heading in some kind of direction. But without wisdom, what will happen is we will end up on a dark path. Without wisdom, we're going to end up on a path that we don't like. We won't like where it ends. And listen, you've been there. I've been there. We've all been there. We've all been on a path where we know sometimes, right? We know sometimes this path ain't going to lead us where we want to go. But we still go on it anyway, right? Have you ever eaten Taco Bell? It's a bad path to go down, isn't it? But man, I still got to eat that a couple times a year, even though I know the result, right? And I wish it was only the funny things, right? But we make those decisions in more consequential areas of our life, haven't we? Where we go down a path knowing nothing good is going to come from this. But we ignore what wisdom says and we go down this path anyway. Sometimes we know we're on the wrong path and we still stay on it. And maybe we got the intentions to get better, but we'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it the next day. We'll do it next year, and we keep going on this path, and we know our habits, our addictions, our attitude, our words, it's not good for us, it's not good for our family, it's not good for our relationship. And what Solomon is saying here in these first few verses of chapter 2 is if you keep going down that dark path, you will end up in a place you do not want to be. The consequences will be consequences you don't want to suffer. Those decisions you're making or not making will cost you, will affect you, will harm not just yourself, but the people that are closest to you. And if you don't want those things, if you don't want your marriage to crumble, if you don't want your addiction to eat you alive, if you don't want your faith to shrivel, you're going to have to change the path you are going down. So he's saying these first few verses, but now he's going to continue and he's going to show us how we can get off this path onto a better path. Verse 20. Thus, you will walk in the ways of the good and keep the paths of the righteous. For the upright will live in the land and the blameless will remain in it, but the wicked will be cut off from the land and the unfaithful will be torn from it. Here's what he's saying. He's saying, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in your life? Where do you want to be in your faith? Find somebody that's there and follow in their footsteps. That's what he's saying. He's saying, where do you want to be at life? Find somebody that's there and follow in their footsteps. Listen, if you want a good marriage, If you want your marriage to be stronger, if you want to connect better with your spouse, find somebody who has a great marriage. Follow in their footsteps. If you want to grow your faith, if you're tired of your faith just kind of being this kind of shell, find somebody who has a vibrant faith and follow in their footsteps. If you find yourself in a really difficult situation, you just don't know how to get out of it, find somebody who's been there and have them walk beside you. So he's saying if you want to get off the dark path that's leading to that place you don't want to go, you need to find somebody who's on the right path and follow in their footsteps. A wise person doesn't go through life alone, but leans on others. This is a theme that's found all throughout Proverbs. Let me just show you a few other verses. They'll be on the screen. Proverbs 13:20, walk with the wise. Same verbiage there, walk with the wise. For what? To become wise. For a companion of fools suffers harm. Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one sharpens another. Proverbs 15:22, without counsel, plans fail. By yourself, plans fail. But with advisors, they succeed. Here's what Proverbs is saying over and over again. Friendship and community is paramount to wisdom. You need people in your life. Life is not designed to be done alone. It's too difficult. It's too challenging. And on our own, we'll end up on paths that we don't want to be on. We need people in our life to support us, to challenge us, sometimes to kick us in the pants and say, you need to get your life together. We need people to love and support us. And there's this other thing that's kind of happening here, and you can probably see in some of these Proverbs we looked at, and that's who you hang out with greatly influences who you become. Who you hang out with is who you will become. That's why parents care so much about who their kids hang out with, right? Parents care about who their kids hang out with because they know the influence that friends have on us. I think sometimes we forget that's true in our adult life too. That who we hang out with has a huge influence on us. And I think since we're all young ones, in hindsight, we can see how much just of an impact our friends have. I mean, Proverbs 1:15 or 1:10 and 15 say just that. It says, my son, if sinful men entice you, do not give in to them. If they say, come along with us. Verse 15, my son, do not go along with them. Do not set foot in their paths. What he's saying the people around you are pulling you onto the good path or the bad path. And if you're looking at the people around you, and if they're going down a path you don't want to go, if they're suffering consequences you don't want to suffer, don't go with them. Find a different group of people, a different group of friends, a different community that can support you and challenge you and keep you on the right path to where you actually want to go in life. If we don't pay attention to who we're surrounding ourselves with, we're going to find ourselves one day in a place that we don't want to be. Solomon is warning us, pay attention to our friends. Now, I know there's some of us who are thinking like, well, great, I don't have to worry about my friends influencing me bad because I don't have any friends, right? It's becoming increasingly kind of really a problem since COVID, even though it was a problem before, but especially since COVID, we're so isolated. And some of us might be thinking, well, I don't have any friends. I don't need anybody in my life. I'm doing just fine. Well, Solomon says something against that too. Chapter 18, verse 1, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all judgment. Listen, here's the reality. When you isolate yourself, you end up making really bad and really dumb decisions, right? Guess what? When I put that firework in the 2-liter, I was all by myself. And almost anybody that I had with me would have said, yo, you shouldn't do that. That's a dumb decision. But when we isolate ourselves, we can make increasingly dumb decisions. We can hurt ourselves. We can hurt our family. We can hurt our friends. We can hurt our workplaces. In isolation, we do not make good decisions. God did not create us to make decisions in isolation. And my guess is we can probably all think of somebody we know that's isolated themselves and then made a really bad decision. They didn't consult anybody, they didn't ask anybody, they just decided, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna do this thing. And then when they finally came public with their decision, we thought, what were you thinking? But they made it in isolation. And let's look at our own lives. Let's look at our own lives. Those moments when you had those thoughts where you're thinking, what was I thinking? You thought, why did I make that decision? Why did I do that thing? How many of those times were you by yourself? My guess is probably almost all of them. We don't make good decisions in isolation. We need the counsel, the support, the love of others. This is what Proverbs is talking about. It's talking about this idea of community, of having friends, of being known. The path to a better life is with others. The path to a better life is walked with others. And listen, if you want to get out of that place you're stuck in, you need people. If you want to get out of whatever situation you found yourself in, you need people. If you want to grow your faith and connect with God and finally see that meaningful change take place in your life, you're not going to do that alone. You'll never overcome your addiction, your struggles, your temptations, your whatever. You'll never overcome those by yourself. You need the support, the love, the care of other people in your life, people that are on the path that you want to be on. That's what Solomon is saying all throughout the book of Proverbs. So if you want this year to be different, if you want 2023 to be a year where you can kick that habit, fix your marriage, make better decisions, grow your faith, climb out of debt, restore that relationship, you need friends. You need community. Community that is on the path you want to be on. So what does that mean? Let's end by kind of distilling this into two practical ways that you can apply what the book of Proverbs is saying about this idea of community. And the first one is this: create space for relationships. We got to create space. Listen, I know we're busy. We all got things going on. We got things demanding our attention. We got an abundance of things on our hands. We do. We got so many things going on. But if you want different results in your life, you got to take a different approach. If you intend to make these changes in your life, but you're unwilling to do your life any different this year than last, you're going to get the same results. If you don't change the direction, it doesn't matter what your intention is. So the first step is we got to create space for these relationships. We got to create space for people. We got to say no to something maybe that's good for something that's better. We got to create space for community. And I know that's asking a lot. So here's kind of my challenge. We got three groups right now. Two groups that have been meeting for a while on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and one group that's launching on Sundays that's open to families and kids. They're going to have some childcare in their basement. My challenge would be give one a try. Give it a try. You can show up and check it out before you commit to anything, but give it a try. Create that space. Our groups tend to run from January till sometime in May, and then we'll take a short little break. Maybe just give it a try for these few months. See what God can do through the community of others. Because my guess is you can start making some changes in your life that you've wanted to see when you create space for relationships. And the second thing is this: be vulnerable. After we create space, we need to be vulnerable. And I know that's hard. I know vulnerability is hard, and it's not something we do in our culture that much anymore. But let me just say, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying we need to be vulnerable with everybody. I'm not saying we need to hop on Facebook and tweet out or share all our sins that we've struggled with. That's not what I'm talking about, vulnerability. That's kind of awkward and weird, and that kind of pushes people away. I'm not saying the second that somebody shows up, we just need to spill everything that God's doing. You've been around that person, and it's kind of awkward sometimes. That's not what I'm saying when I say be vulnerable. What I'm saying is you need to find a person or two in your life that you can trust, that's on the path you want to be on. And you need to be vulnerable with them. You need to share what's going on in your life. Share what you're struggling with. Let them in on the parts of your life that nobody else knows. Because until you bring that part of your life into the light, it's not going to get better. Hidden things fester. Hidden things don't heal. When we bring the messiness of our life into the light of community, a loving community, people that we can trust. Again, I'm not saying you need to share with everybody, but you do need to share with somebody. Then God can heal you. God can start healing and working in your life. Again, you don't need to be known by everybody, but you do need to be known by somebody. So if you want to make changes in your life and your faith this year, you're going to have to create space for people, and you're going to have to be vulnerable. You're going to have to take some steps towards vulnerability. Not all at once, but you're going to have to take steps to be more vulnerable and to share with what's going on in your life. Because if you do those things, what you're doing, when you create space, when you practice vulnerability, what you're doing is you're setting the direction for your life. You're setting the direction that you want to go. Because remember, your direction, not your intention, leads to your destination. So if you want to make those meaningful changes in your life, you need to set the direction in that way. And what the book of Proverbs is saying, and I've seen to be true in my life and so many others, is those changes, they won't stick if you make them in isolation. They won't last unless you bring somebody else in to support and help you. So, would you this year create that space? Check out a group. Carve out time so that you can let people pour into you, commit to it, prioritize it, and then practice vulnerability. Take a step to be known by somebody. Because I think if you do that, you will see your life change. We're going to take just a minute now to give you an opportunity to take communion. And the whole reason that we gather here is because of what Jesus has done for us. The whole reason we can make change in our life and our faith is because what he's done for us, his work on the cross. And I would just encourage you to take a minute as before we sing a few songs, we'll just play some soft music and give you a moment to reflect. And I would just encourage you to reflect on what changes do you want to see in your life and faith this year. And spend some time praying that God would give you the strength to pursue those, to step into those, that he'd bring people into your life to support you, to love you, and to challenge you to actually follow through with those. I bet you if you do that, you'll be glad that you did. Let's pray. God, we thank you. Thank you that you didn't leave us in our brokenness and our messiness, but you came after us. God, I pray that this year for us might be a year where we make those changes in our life. God, I pray for those of us that are going at it alone. God, I pray that you'd bring us somebody to come alongside us, to support us, to love us, to challenge us. God, I pray that this would be a year that we can take that next step in our faith journey and move closer to you. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.